Thank you for staying with us. It is still the conversation. Water transportation is an integral part of Lagos' multimodal transport system, offering an efficient alternative to road travel. However, ensuring passenger safety on the waterways is a priority that cannot be overlooked. To discuss efforts of the state government in ensuring safety on Lagos waterways, we are joined by the General Manager, Lagos State Waterways Authority, Oluwadamilola Emmanuel. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. So let's begin. We're talking about water transportation. Now, how significant is water transportation when you look at the overall transport system in Lagos?
15 out of 20 local governments in Lagos are accessible by water. I don't know if that answers the question already. So that tells you the fact that, and being a city surrounded by water, city of aquatic splendor, as we'll call Lagos, it's very, very obvious, and that is the reason why water transportation plays a very critical role in ensuring mobility around our city. And of course, having the fact that there's no traffic on the waterways as well, you can ensure, you get to your destinations on time. However, the state government is not just wanting to develop water transportation in isolation. It's the whole idea of integrated transportation, which leads from the road to the rail and to the waterways. So it's how all these three components come together to ensure that people can move from point A to point B seamlessly.
Okay, talking about distance and of course traffic congestion on our roads, have you seen a surge in waterway transport recently?
Well, yes, we have, but also no, because it will be good to balance it out. As you know, water transportation is capital intensive. Not only that, largely the current boats are fossil fuel, which means that they're driven, basically they're petrol engines. And as you know what, the price of petrol has obviously caused an increase in ticket prices because formerly, even where you had road transportation, water transportation is twice the amount. So imagine with the increase, that has also sort of increased the fares. So obviously, you have to obviously think about, how people's pockets and of course, what the economy is saying for people to be able to use. So yes, we saw a surge initially, but with the petrol price, didn't really help, which is why the state government is now looking for innovative ways to ensure that, can we also have, just like the way they started to do pilots on the electric buses, can we also begin to have electric boats, or at least hybrid? You have petrol and electric.
Can
so
electric work on water?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, okay.
Electric boats can work on water, absolutely. As long as it's charged, you're good to go.
So now that we are talking about safety on waterways, what are the major safety concerns on the Lagos waterways, and how are you addressing them?
Well, like every mode of transportation, you're exposed to accidents, you're exposed to hazards on the waterways. But like I said to you, there's no traffic. So the fact that there's no traffic obviously tells you that for an accident to happen, then there has to be some kind of, we'll say, human element, because obviously if a boat is just going on its own, except something happens, except maybe the captain doesn't see an impediment, or the captain decides not to be patient for another boat, so something has to happen. So what did we do? Because there was a clear vision to ensure that, because we knew that if you didn't improve safety, people were not going to be confident enough to use the waterways. We set out a very clear vision. This has been a 5-year vision of which we're even coming to the place of completion. And I dare say in the whole of Nigeria, Lagos is #1 in terms of safety of the water, which is why other states who have been having accidents have been coming to Lagos to say, can we learn from you? How are you doing it? So what did we do? The very first thing we did was obviously set out a plan, because if you don't plan, then you're going to fail. You know what I mean? So we then looked at the personnel. At that point in time, there were just 48 of them manning the entire waterways. Mr. Governor was gracious enough to approve for us to increase the personnel on the waterways to 108. With that, we saw a drastic drop in the amount of accidents, because we are now covering so many areas across the waterways, which, of course, we were not seeing before. Following up to that, we then now ramped up our search and rescue units to be able to let people know that, look, if anything happens to you, there will be emergency team that will get to you. So we trained 2 teams of 10 each This involves divers, this involves patrol team, it also involved officers on the jet ski to also get there on time as well, and even deploying what we call a U-Safe, which is a very modern device where you can, it's a remote control device that in the case of any emergency, you deploy it from your location and it goes to rescue people live as well. Yes, it's called a U-Safe. So those two measures, we saw significant amount of accident reducing. So I dare say before you used to have 10 to 12 in a year. As at the last 3 years, we've just seen about 1 or 2. For us, that has been significant, and we really wouldn't get to the point where it's basically 0 accidents on the waterway, because even the 2 that happened last year, as far as I'm concerned, were just carelessness on the part of the operators, and of course they had to face the full wrath of the law. But generally, we've seen that improvement, and of course, the use of technology, because we have the very first of its kind, a waterways monitoring and data management center right there in Falomo, where we can monitor real time everything going on our waterways.
So in terms of security as well, because when we're talking about safety,
yes, you have to.
Security is also part of it. So how are you also ensuring that passengers feel secure while on the water?
The good thing about it is that we are faced with safety. Security is the Navy and the Marine Police complements the activities that we also play in terms of safety. So it's good for, because you can't play safety and security all at the same time, because it will be a lot for any agency. So we partner with the Marine Police and the Navy, who generally provide security for the waterways generally. But of course, can that be improved upon? Most definitely. But with even the Waterways Monitoring and Data Management Center, it's very easy for us to spot all kinds of things and report straight to Marine Police or Navy, because then you can deploy resources, because if not, they would just be doing patrols around the waterways, which can be a waste of fuel and a waste of petrol, but now with the Waterways Monitoring and Data Management Center, you can give reports. Oh, we've noticed something here, we noticed some kind of movements here, we noticed this here, and every time there's been any kind of kidnap on the waterways, trust me, it has been a planned and of course orchestrated event, not that it's no longer safe.
Okay, still talking about safety, security on our waterways. In the past, we noticed that there were boat mishaps which happened at night, and they said they were being warned not to operate at night. Yeah. So will that be the stand forever, or can security or safety measures be put in place, for boats to move freely even at night?
Lagos is constantly evolving, so I don't believe that will be the status of things. I believe very strongly that there will come a time where we can actually allow it. However, we have to ensure, the states will have put necessary measures in place, because you have to make sure the waterways is well lit. Any country where you allow night travel, if the waterway is not well lit, then you can't allow water transport, which will be wrong. So it's still the stand for now, but as you know, it's a law.
7 p.m., right?
Yeah, 7 p.m. But you know what it is? People would always test and always want to break the rules. You know what I mean? However, in terms of cruising, for tourism boats, there are certain locations, especially around the island, Ikoyi, VI, Lekki Phase 1, they are allowed to cruise up until 10 p.m., but they have a night permit. But they mustn't go outside of that jurisdiction. Well, they're not allowed to. And so I know a lot of them would do, but that's why I said, you break the rule, but you face the full wrath of the law, and you expose yourself to dangers. At that point in time, you'll be held responsible for whatever it is that you meet.
Okay. I'd like you to take us through the core safety regulations of LASWA.
Yeah. Okay.
The regulations. Yeah.
Yes. So the regulations, and so in driving this conversation, I would like to talk about the use of the life jacket.
But that's the only one we hear about.
But it's very important.
It's very important. But that's the only one.
So when we speak about that, it's very, very important, because for us it's the critical and most important thing. It all starts with that, because it's that one element you must ensure that as you get on the boat you have, and which is why even our water guards, the people who ensure that boats, you see them, you can see it on the screen as well, to ensure that they are wearing those life jackets. And of course, it all goes back to, regarding regulations, goes back to our monitoring of the waterways as well, through patrol teams who go from point A to point B. Of course, ensuring that boats as well are well registered as well. Ensuring that, the captains, the personnel, the captains and the deckhands, have the required training as well, and certification that's required for them to be able to navigate. Yes, do we still have the informal sector largely dominating? Yes, which is why the state government is doing its best to formalize this process of the personnel on the waterways.
So how do you ensure that passengers adhere to these safety measures that have been put in place?
Well, you know, passengers, first of all, the passengers actually have a forum. In some of the locations, in some of the locations, they have a forum, which makes it easy for us to be able to, of course, engage and communicate with them. But what we've been over the years, what we've organized is safety sensitization campaigns where we take them to the jetties, and it's targeted really at the passengers, because we do a lot with the captains and the deckhands, but the passengers are very, very important to us. So we use that medium to as well address the passengers. And the good thing that they have a forum, so we're able to then, of course, speak to them through this forum. But we want to get to a point where even before every trip you make, there is a safety message, almost like on the airplane where they tell you the safety message. So that's where we're working towards getting to now. Down every boat you get onto, you'll be able to ensure that they give you a safety talk before you embark, so that in case of any emergency, you know what you ought to do.
So talking about emergency now,
Yes.
what does the agency, you know, LASWA, have for response, you know, like response mechanisms that are in place, you know, in case of emergency?
Yeah, so of course we follow through with the state's emergency line 767 or 112, and then when you call, the call is then transferred to us, or you reach us also directly 009 012 9888, 009 012 9777. So of course, once you make that call, the next thing is to then, like I mentioned, we have 2 trained teams who are fully search and rescue compliant. We have, not only do you have the personnel, also have the boats and the jet ski, and I also mentioned the USAFE, which obviously are all components of this safety system, and that in case of any emergency, they can get there in the shortest time possible as well. But the good thing about the waterways is that we also work with the locals. A lot of the time you have the fishermen, we also have local divers, who sometimes are the first responders there, and they're already there, but before you know it, we are there to also provide backup. And the waterways is a very, very closely knit community. Whenever there's one incident, you know, there's another boat to support, and
Okay, that was the next question.
So
How well do you work with the community?
Work well together. Absolutely, work very well together.
Are there specific laws or penalties for those who do not want to adhere to the safety measures put in place? Because you have the, apart from the state-owned ferries, you also have other people who do their businesses on the water. So what are the penalties for not adhering to the safety measures put in place?
Well, you know, of course, different amounts to the penalties, but one of the things that's very clear is that if you are careless with the lives you're holding, they're going to face the full wrath of the law. I mean, 2 years ago, we had a captain who was sentenced to death because he caused the loss of lives of almost 15 people around the Apapa axis. So it can get as much, it can get as high as that. Of course, for not wearing a life jacket as well, there are penalties.
For the passenger who does not want to wear the life jacket?
I mean, now we don't deal with the passenger, we deal with the operators. But there's going to come a time where we might have to deal with the passenger, because sometimes passengers as well, you know, prove to be stubborn. But it's really the operator, because the truth about it is that on the boat, right, as a captain, you have the right. If a passenger refuses to, then you have the right to tell them, well, you need to come off and come off board. Yeah. So, but it's really the operators that we often hold accountable now. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Recently, there was this collaboration with LASMA. Is it LASMA? No, sorry. What are they called?
Loma.
The Loma.
Okay.
Sorry, with Loma.
Yes.
I'd like you to take us through what the collaboration is on. Is it what Loma does on land you want them to now do, or what?
Yeah.
Are they trained to do that?
Yeah.
To come?
Well, you know, Mr. Governor has always pushed for collaboration among agencies, and it's the use of ensuring that we can all, you know, utilize our resources adequately, which is why the waterways is heavily polluted. Water has no depth of its own. So where's the water coming from? It's coming from land. I dare say that when we stop littering our environment on land, we'll have less waste on our waterways.
Some even deliberately pour into the
into the waterway because they see it as a dumping ground. See, that's the mindset. So, of course, I know the Ministry of Environment is looking at how to ensure that their task force, you know, is able to catch some culprits in this as well. But that's why we need to partner with Loma, because of what we've seen. So a plastic bottle can last up to 100 years on the waterways. And sometimes those plastic bottles and that waste gets clogged up in the engine of boats. And it's also dangerous for the fish because the fish are swallowing out. So some of the fish are eating, maybe they're eating some plastic. Well, that's not very nice. But yeah, so we had to, of course, partner. And the good thing about Loma had set up a marine unit, because our core competence is to ensure safety of, you know, the passengers and operators. You know, this is something that we didn't want to take up on our own as well. Why not look for those who already have the expertise? And the good thing, they set up a marine unit who works at some of our jetties and ensure that they can clear the waste. And of course, they take the recyclables and are you know, ensuring that they able to recycle the plastics.
Okay, because most times, you know, just by the
you see
a
very sorry side. And the thing that
dirt.
you clear it now, you're gonna have it by it's coming back. It's coming back.
And what are some of the challenges that LASWA is facing, you know, in ensuring safety on the waterways, and how have you been able to deal with these challenges?
Cross-cutting functions with the federal agency. We've had that issue for the longest time possible, gone to court, came back. But the good thing about it is that we're very focused on the fact that it's all about safety and development of the Lagos State waterways. So we found ways to work and collaborate, but I think that for us had always been a major issue in the 16 years of LASWA's existence. And we just found a way to say, look, we need to come to the table, work together, because working together, you know, makes us stronger, as opposed to, we say, when two elephants are fighting, the grass that suffers. So we don't want the grass to suffer, the grass being, of course, the Lagosians and the good people of Lagos State. So that for us has been a culture. And of course, budgetary challenges as well, which will always be the case because there's competing interests in the states. You have to think about it as well. We've seen how even within transportation, the rail has had to pick up, and rail too is capital intensive. So rail and water being capital intensive, something has to sort of give at some point, but which is why there's significant investment coming into the waterways by God's grace this year, starting from this year to the next 4 or 5 years. And we believe very significantly that's going to be a game changer for the waterways.
So how well has the agency engaged the public in understanding safety and the waterways? What engagements have you had with the public recently? Well,
this is one area that I must say we must do a lot more. But in terms of engaging the public, like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of safety sensitization programs. And in these programs that then enlighten you about the use of the waterways, the benefits, how safe the waterways is. But this has been at jetties. One of the things we'll now do beyond jetties, now go to bus stops and around the community, but we have always been centered around the jetties. But we know that not everyone is coming to only those who want to use it are coming to the jetties. So, but we also leverage on the times where we have collaboration with either road transportation or rural transportation to go and speak there as well, you know, to the audience there as well. So we use those forums whenever they have their seminars or conferences to speak about water transportation. But generally, we want to now take it beyond there to, you know, the wider community, which is obviously our bus stops and several other places where we can engage.
You know, there are some people that will not travel by water.
Are you one of them?
Someone is sitting.
Are you one of them?
I have traveled by water once. I don't know if I want to try it again, but maybe I can.
I am.
But again, how are you also ensuring or building confidence in Lagosians to see that this infrastructure is available for them to use?
Well, we believe that it's important, things that you see, things that you hear, very important. Which is why we're very, very intentional with the kind of communication that's coming out, even from LASWA, and of course sister agencies as well, to ensure that what people are hearing about the waterways. That's why I said by the time you reel out the numbers of the amount of, few accidents compared to road, showing that, of course, Mr. Governor as well last year commissioned what we call is the Omnibus, which is a more improved version of the kind of boats we've been seeing. We had 15 of them now in operations, with another 10 to come between now and the end of the year as well. That's about 25 new boats. Of course, seeing those boats as well, you feel, I mean, even everybody that's not using water, we know that, okay, these are the kind of boats I'd love to enter, you know, and get to go on. So we believe very, very strongly, and that's why we've been very focused on what we're portraying in terms of the necessary infrastructure, and of course, showing all of the jetties, which the Ministry of Waterfront and Infrastructure Development has been working on for the state as well, to show them this as well. And of course, our command and control center to speak to it, the fact that, look, we can see real time everything that is going on, and most importantly, the life jacket awareness, very, very important, and letting people understand the usefulness and the importance of that life jacket.
Okay, you spoke about the omnibus, and of course we know that Lagos State government is, you know, doing everything possible to ensure safety on our waterways. What other infrastructure improvements are being planned, you know, for safety on our waterways? You know,
well, there's the dredging. Dredging just basically means creating a road. The way you make any road on land and the way you make the road motorable, the same thing you have to do for the waterways. People don't see water and say, ah, well, you can just go on it. No, you can't.
Did you see my face? I was like, are they pointing?
No, so there's a process of dredging. As you know, there's sand below the water, which means that the water might be shallow, but you need deep water for the boats, because the boats have a draft, and if it's not deep enough, those boats will not be able to move because the sand will stop it. So the dredging involves the process of removing sand, and that's the sand you even see that people they use for construction around town, because that sand is coming from the water. So they take out the sand, and then you now make the water much deeper. So this is something that must be done, and there's also something called... I was going to ask,
how often is that done?
It's something done, I mean, they do it every year. The Ministry of Waterfront and Infrastructure Development are in charge of that. They do that every year, but they prioritize routes. And the good thing about it is that once they do it, then they just have to, subsequent years, do what they call maintenance dredging. But if it's abandoned for too long, then they have to come back and channelize and dredge again, which shouldn't be the case, but yeah. But the state government has been actively doing this, which is why generally we're still able to move around most of our routes quite seamlessly. Okay. And the depth of the water is very good for us to be able to move people en masse.
Okay, despite the dredging, are there areas inside that water that, you know, ferries cannot, you know, pass through, just like when we have like a big pothole on our road? And will there be any indication, you know, on this?
Well, then, there are no potholes, but the modern boats now have what you call an echo sounder, or a device that lets you know the depths at different levels. The captains like to tell you they have local knowledge, but like I said to them, you can't just rely on local. Very true. No, seriously, they have this thing called local knowledge, and they sort of know the rules. But you know how to navigate. How to navigate. But you know, we don't rely on that. This is the age of technology.
Exactly.
Yeah, you must ensure that. Yeah, but definitely, where there's any kind of impediment, we usually go and mark it with what we call a buoy. A buoy is just like, it's like this round thing that you see on the water with either red or green, which identify that there's a danger there, don't go there as well. Yeah, so if there's any kind of impediment, we also able to call it, we mark it so that people can be aware that there's some kind of impediment there, and you can avoid it.
Oh, okay. I have a question that just came in there. It says, asking you to speak on your relationship with the National Inland Waterway.
I think we did that earlier. We're speaking about collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yeah, so I mean, we're collaborating with them. There have been issues, but we had to collaborate with them extensively, because they are federal government. You must respect, state must respect, and we must work together. However, you know, federal government knows as well, state government has resources, so we ensure that we collaborate, work together, and ensure that we give people, the Lagosians, what they want.
We can't talk about waterways and not also delve into tourism.
Absolutely. So, very important.
Yeah. So how are we also ensuring that the waterways is safe, secure enough, you know, to boost the tourism sector of the economy?
Well,
you go for sure.
I believe that the regatta showed that one, and Dirty December also showed that, because throughout Dirty December, Waterways was one of the places where a lot of people were moving. So that already shows you that it's safe, it's secure, and people are actually using it. However, can we organize things a lot better?
Exactly. Can we have more events?
And can we have more events?
And most
definitely, I think that even from the Easter period to other parts of the year as well, constantly on the weekend. In fact, from Friday to Sunday, you constantly have a large entourage of people who are going to the beach houses, Ilashe, Ibeshe, Ikare. They're all going there constantly. So it's already it's already going well, and which is why we now want to ensure that the next stage, of course, will now be to have waterways tours where you can take a boat and it takes you around the different parts of the boat. I know that a lot of private operators are also looking at that opportunity, and I know that Ministry of Tourism, alongside ourselves, because what we do is just create an enabling environment for Ministry of Tourism to drive this, right? And then they can use our facilities, and then the private operators pick people and can take them to different destinations by the waterways.
So if someone wants to embark on like a boat cruise,
yes,
are they supposed to come to you?
They come to they go to the private operators. Private operators offer this. So not only they move people in terms of you want to go and do your business, but they also move people on the weekends for any kind of tourism activities you want to engage in. So they currently do that right now.
Okay, for those who have, you know, I want us to go back to those who have a phobia, who have phobia for water, and you know they are already on the water. Is there anything you can do if there's some form of emergency? Because I know we've talked about emergency before you go. Yes. Safety measures before. Yes. What if something just happens, you know, like the person's faints or starts to throw up? You know, is there that right emergency that can help this person?
Well,
or do we have the
first aid
in there, or the captain, you know, who can?
So to be honest, that's why we said for the captain, part of the training they get not just how to drive the boats, but how to deal with emergency and how to help people cope in times of emergencies. Absolutely one of the things that the captains are trained on. Even for the passengers, when we engage the passengers as well, they are also trained on safety measures to embark upon, which is why I said, you know, the next stage we want to get to is giving people the safety messages even before they embark on trips. We have to definitely get the there are local boats, the informal sector, but we still have to get to that point where they're giving that safety talk of, oh, this is what to do in case of any emergency, not to scare them, but also to give them that sort of comfort that, you know, and that's why I said, look, at the end of the day, the life jacket is very, very important, which is why we've done a lot around
life jacket.
It doesn't
stop phobia.
It's elevated. And of course, it's to encourage Lagosians, go and learn how to swim.
Because I was about to ask, if you don't know how to swim.
But you know I can swim very well.
So you can swim, you should have no phobia.
For riding on water.
I know, that's so, you know, because swimming, you should give you that confidence to be able to use the water, because if you fall in, you know that you will swim.
Okay. So for someone who does not know how to swim,
no, if you don't
should that person be confident to use?
Definitely, because you still have the life jacket and you're still safe. It's just like you're in a swimming pool. So you go to a swimming pool, yes, you know that you can't swim, but at the end of the day, there are areas in which I'll stay in because I know that you are held to safety rules of any swimming pool, right? And people go, so same thing to wear your life jacket, you are well safe. But of course, swimming just helps give confidence. Not as if we encourage people to learn, and there's no age you can learn how to swim.
So if you don't know how to swim, go and learn how to swim.
Let's look at the weather now. Yes. So how does the weather, or how do weather conditions affect safety on waterways, and you know, what precautions can one take?
Most definitely. I mean, we've been exploring a partnership, but don't have the partnership with NIMET. NIMET is a national meteorological agency for so they are we were looking at ways to which we can communicate this to operators that these are the weather conditions for this day. You know how they will provide that information. It's something we're exploring. We've had extensive conversations, back and forth meetings as well. But prior to that, at the jetties, once you see that the weather is not favorable, we don't allow all the boats to move. That's part of the responsibilities of the officers there. Where, for example, it's raining heavily, you will not allow any of the boats to move, because obviously visibility, very, very important. A few of the accidents that happened have been caused by the fact that the weather adverse condition, the captains still decided they were going to move, and of course because they couldn't see, you know, they got into trouble. So whenever we send out messages to operators on all the stations that you don't allow the boats move in terms of any adverse weather conditions that may be. Really, it's usually the rains or maybe when it's foggy, and then we don't allow the boats move until it's clear and it's very visible.
Okay, sometimes on third mainland page while driving, I see sometimes that the water is fuller and not so clean. I don't want to call it dirty because you can't call that. It just has a different color from the normal color you see it. Yeah. And it is not the rain. I'd like you to explain that.
Well, it's part of pollution. It's all pollution. So if you pollute here, the water travels and takes.
Makes it higher.
I mean, so is the drainages empty into the river, so that's what happens as well. But a lot of the times, what you're seeing as high, when the boats are going, the boats will see it as high. You might see it as high, but when the boats are going, it doesn't mean that it will drown the boats. No, but in terms of, yes, like does the water level, does it rise and fall? Definitely. Which is why the next phase of even our command and control center is to begin to monitor the tides at different points and be able to let people know what the tides are at the different levels of different parts of the waterways.
I'd like you to speak more on that, because I was going to ask how you're leveraging on technology, you know, to also boost confidence of Lagosians on safety on waterways.
Well, as you know, there's a cowrie card. That cowrie card you use on the road, use on BRT, use on the rail, and also use on the waterways as well, to ensure there's seamless integration across all the different modes. Beyond that as well, we also have the Waterways Monitoring and Data Management Center, which I've spoken about, which is able to adequately monitor the waterways real time with everything that's going on, and also provide data, because what we have at the water guards, we have an app, and every boat that is berthing at the different jetties and how many passengers, that information is coming back into the control room, so we can begin to generate and of course store that data for us as well. So in terms of data management and being able to help even government make informed decisions, because we now know how many people are moving towards this location. We've seen a rise in this place, and this is important that we look at the facilities there as well. So all of that is helping us be able to plan, be able to effectively monitor our waterways, and generally just ensure that the waterways is not only safe, but of course becomes prosperous as well.
You've spoken extensively about what the government has done, what the government has done. So what is the role, or what are the roles of the people as well, you know, to also ensure safety on the waterways?
Well, their role is still, I would say, is basically stated out for them. The fact that the government has provided the infrastructure, you then of course have personal responsibility as well to ensure that you are safe on the water, and which other better way to ensure that by, look, you have your life jackets and adhere to basic rules and regulations, which is why we said, yes, we're dealing a lot with the operators, but we need to begin to look at the passengers themselves, who sometimes, you know, are causing issues too on the waterways as well, and you know how they have to know, look, you're going to face consequences if you don't adhere to the rules and regulations of the waterways as well. So for us, in terms of them, is to, of course, we sensitize them, but also they're aware of the different things that they need to do, basically adhere to the rules and regulations as required.
Okay, now as Lagos continues to embrace water transport as a vital alternative for transportation, we have also learned today that strict regulations, enforcement, improved infrastructure, and public awareness are crucial in making our waterways safer. Thank you very much, Oluwadamilola Emmanuel, General Manager, Lagos State Waterways Authority, as we've been speaking on safety on Lagos waterways. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me here.
We'll go on a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.